Say good morning to Grenada, Carriacou, Petit Martinique, the rest of the Eastern Caribbean, the world. Good morning. Welcome to The Point for today. It's Thursday, the 30th day of June, 2022. Good morning to one and all. Let me say good morning to my viewers, first and foremost, via GBN TV, whether you're viewing via channel 7, 11, or 20. Good morning to you. How's everybody doing? Hope all is well with you. Let's say good morning to our listeners via K105, whatever part of the island you're listening us from on K105. Let me say thanks for joining us this morning. Those of you via social media, let's say good morning to our Facebook audience this morning. Those of you viewing by our Facebook page, good morning to you, and thanks for taking the opportunity to view with us this morning. And our YouTube channel viewers this morning also, let me say good morning. It's GT with you again. Did promise I'm going to be with you guys for the entire week, and I'm here, as I did mention yesterday. And for most of the morning, I'm going to be with you for the most of the week. I've been saying I'll be here with you. This morning we do have a guest in the studio with us this morning, so it's not going to be a fully open line, but I will also, of course, open the line from time to time if you listeners and viewers have a question that you may like to ask our guest. We have for you this morning, is it Sergeant Roberts? I hope I got your name right. Good morning to you, Sergeant Roberts.
Good morning to you, GT, and good morning to the GBN family.
How's everything with you this morning, sir?
Relatively okay.
Relatively okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So that means even though it may not be 100%, you're born in the 90s.
It's not 100, and it's definitely not in the 90s.
Not in the 90s. Well, man. All right, you'll get over that. We this morning, we of course, Sergeant Roberts is in with us in studio, and we're talking pertaining to the season that we are into right now, the hurricane season per se, and in terms of the preparedness standpoint from the Royal Grenada Police Force. And Sergeant Roberts is here with us this morning to chat pertaining to that this morning, and of course he's going to outline the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective and in terms of being prepared, the do's and don'ts. We could always say that in terms of preparedness for hurricane season. Sergeant Roberts, I'll give you a go in terms of what the viewing and listen public should be concerned about when we in a hurricane season from the Royal Grenada Police Force standpoint.
Okay, GT. I'm here to impart some or disseminate some information as it relates to the RGPF position relative to hurricane.
Okay.
Yes. And let me begin by saying that one of the best ways to ensure that or to test your readiness is by what I call rehearsals.
Yes.
When it comes to hurricane preparedness, we don't say rehearsal, we say tabletop exercises. Yes, and that has started. As a matter of fact, the Eastern Division a couple of weeks ago staged their readiness, and everything went okay, I must confess. If my memory serves me correctly, I would want to believe that the Western Division had also staged their tabletop exercise, and from all indication, everything went well.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry for that. At the different police stations, every police station is outfitted with a generator. Yes. Because after the hurricane, GT, you would realize that the police work, even if the station is compromised, the police work or the police effort doesn't stop.
Of course.
As a matter of fact, I believe it intensifies, because you have everybody or many people with all different sorts of problems, and the police has to deal with them. And the police in itself, members of the force would have challenges as well. Yes. So from our perspective, we have talked to the police officers, ensure that they have a plan for themselves and the family at home, because around that time, GT, every police officer has to be in.
Exactly.
All hands on deck. Yes. So we implore them to get the safety, get the plan working, get it up and running. Let everybody know if this happens, what they should do, if these things,
I understand that.
and stuff like that.
So, Sergeant, let me ask you this: what is the typical requirement for police officers from the various stations per se in terms of readiness? What is it like for? What is the process per se that they go through in terms of getting themselves ready just in case there's an emergency level of a hurricane?
Right, as I indicated earlier on the tabletop exercise. In that exercise, everyone.
I should have probably asked what does it entail in terms of those exercises.
right. Everybody had to know what has to be done, and it's inclusive, huh?
Yeah.
Because when you go there, and every police officer should be au fait with that process.
Okay.
Every police officer should be au fait with the process. So yes, the tabletop exercise will give you the hands-on.
Yes.
And what happened in the tabletop exercise is the same thing, or let me say similar thing that is going to happen if this situation arises,
okay.
whereby we're hit by a hurricane. Everybody will. And I must mention that from a divisional perspective, because you don't have every police officer, all the police officer in St. George's. So the different policing division would have its plan as well.
Okay.
And persons have to know exactly what is in the plan, how they should execute the plan, what is my role, what is my function.
Yes.
In that plan. Yes.
All right.
So it's all inclusive. Everyone has to know what's taking place. It shouldn't only be left to the commander and to just disseminate information, because sometimes some people really cannot process information, and we don't want, when we tell you lift your right hand, you should have your right leg.
I understand that.
Or your left hand. Everything should be in sync.
All right.
Yeah, GT. In every policing district, there is what we consider to be safe houses.
Yes.
Because you would realize that most of the police stations are built long time ago. Okay. Little repairs probably were done on them from time to time. And the police is not immune. Yes. So just in case the physical structure is compromised, we have what we call safe houses. So the police will move from
one area,
the damage, and go to the
another.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's hope that the safe houses remain safe.
All right.
Right. So if the safe houses, as the name suggests, remain safe, then we'll move.
Okay.
But and with that said, we shouldn't only keep it to one safe house. We should say 2 or 3 safe houses, because you don't know what's taking place.
That's so true.
So that's when we go to look at safe houses, we don't just, as police officers, go by ourselves. We bring an engineer, and he will look at the physical structure, give his perspective, and if it reaches the standard, then we get a green light, and
it can be used for that purpose.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
No, we no. What are some of the typical do's and don'ts from the Royal Grenadier Police Force perspective in a hurricane, especially for officers? Before we go to the general public, we're talking the Royal Grenadier Police Department in this segment of it. What are some of the do's and don'ts in case there is an emergency in terms of a hurricane? What are the policies per se of the Royal Grenadier Police Force? The do's and don'ts.
Right. So once there is, quote unquote, the bulletin, we understand that it's going to hit. As I told you, every police officer who is on the island, whether or not you're on holidays, you have to come back.
You have to be report. You have to report it.
Yes,
Okay.
you have to report. The person in charge of the division, or who in charge of the operation in a particular division, you have to check the equipment. It doesn't make sense that you have a generator and GT is not working.
So true.
It doesn't make sense you have flashlights or lanterns and you have no batteries, you have no wick, you have no kerosene. So all this little administrative, the administrative part of it has to come into place. You find people, like police officers, would at a particular time say they want to go and check the family.
Yes.
Yeah. We advise persons to ensure that they do that before they come in.
Okay.
And from the different division, the policing division, I am from St. Andrews. I work in St. George's. Right? So if I am in St. George's and the hurricane hits, I mean, it would take me forever to get up to St. Andrews.
Depending on the road conditions and so forth. All right.
Right. So we just thought, well, that is in the plan.
All right.
We thought the Eastern Division would take care of that on our behalf.
Okay.
So they will know where everybody lives, check them, see what's taking place. If it's okay, there is a way to contact us.
Okay.
Because we have radios and stuff like that.
All right.
And we know.
Well, I was going to get into that as you mentioned it in terms of the communication aspect for the Royal Grenada Police Force in terms of communicating. I had one time had an interview with, of course, a member of the Royal Grenada Police Force pertaining to the communication aspects of things. Now, in terms of the Royal Grenada Police Force communicated with the various, divisions in terms of police stations, per se, and you did mention that you being in one division, as you said, you're in St. Andrew, and probably your station of working probably gonna be in St. George's. Communication aspect in terms of making sure family. You said folks in that particular division will take care of that for you.
Yeah.
So is there police officers who are assigned to take care of for knowing the whereabouts of other officers' families and so forth if they cannot at the time get to that particular, of course, part of the island, per se? Is that an aspect of the preparedness?
Yes, GT.
Mm-hmm.
In my area, for example, I have about 6 police officers living close by.
Okay.
So it's family.
Mm-hmm.
All of us is not working in St. George's.
I understand that.
And stuff like that. So it's all about communicating, talking to your friends. If I know that Philip is in Grenville and he lives next to me, I know from time to time he's closer, so he's going to check up on his family as well.
All right.
So he's going to check it out for me, see what's taking place, give me a feedback. If you have to report any situation to your commander at Grenville relative to my family, you do so. And if someone is injured and have to seek some medical attention, they can do that.
Okay. And I'm assuming the opportunities will be awarded to you to probably get some time off if you have to, if it's possible, depending on the nature of the situation. Maybe you have to give it some attention. You get the time off to do it. And I guess it all depends on the severity of the issues at hand. Also, the severity of the impact. If the hurricane is, let's say for instance, like an Ivan issue. You understand, where we know how devastating that was. You understand. I guess an opportunity will be awarded to the officers to go on and make sure their families and so forth, and then still report back in.
Precisely.
All right.
Precisely.
All right. No, we spoke a little bit there in terms of officers and the communication part. We did chat about that. We talk about the preparedness for officers in terms of making sure that everything that is needed is ready just in case a disaster strikes. What is the Royal Grenada Police Force saying pertaining to how individuals, per se, now we talk in general, the individual of a nation, what are some of the do's and don'ts that the Royal Grenada Police Force would like to put out in terms of advising, the regular individuals out there, the do's and don'ts during or after a hurricane, or even before?
Yeah. We use 3 words.
Yeah.
The first one is safety. The second one, safety. And GT, the third one, safety.
Safety.
Yeah, and I'm saying that because one shouldn't overemphasize safety. If there's an impending hurricane, everybody has to take responsibility to protect himself. If you live in a flood-prone area, you're advised to seek higher ground. If you live on a hill, and if you're exposed, I mean, Ivan taught us some serious lessons. If you live on a hill and there might be slides, you foresee, you perceive that there might be some slide, because generally 99% or 90% of the time the hurricane comes with a lot of rains. You're asked to get out of there. If there's a tree hanging over your house, you trim or you cut. And if you have to move to a shelter or to a neighbor, you do so early. You don't wait on the 11th hour. When the situation becomes chaotic, wind is blowing, debris up and down, flying across, you don't want to put yourself and others at risk. So you do so early. And I would advise persons to, from time to time, pack what I would call the emergency bag or emergency kit. You don't wait.
That's so true.
To when you hear something and you go and fighting to look for something, something's close to put in a bag, because sometimes you think you have it here and you can't find it. And that time is of the essence here. Yeah. I will also advise persons, avoid this panic shopping. Whenever there is a little thing, everybody the grid just jam. Supermarket
I understand that. But it also goes around in terms of people following getting the right information, following from the correct sources. You understand? I'm assuming that is also a relative part that the Royal Police Force would like to advise. And what's the Royal Grenada Police Force take on following the right information from the credible sources also? Folks go online, and nowadays it's easy to go online and get information.
Yes. And
sometimes it may not always be credible, especially you taking it from third-party sources. You understand? What's the Royal Grenada, of course, take on that?
Right. And we would advise persons to take the information from NADMA. NADMA is our disaster management authority, and they would give us the information that is required to protect ourselves.
All right.
The information is tricky, GT. I would tell you, Bahia hurricane coming in at 10 o'clock. And you run with that and you tell somebody that, and the fifth person you tell, they interpret a different thing.
Exactly.
And the message is distorted.
And 10 o'clock may come down to 8 o'clolock.
It's going to be 10 o'clock the next day when it's 10 o'clock.
I understand that.
Tonight. Just pay attention to details, pay particular attention to NADMA's reports and stuff like that. And I think it should be fairly okay.
All right. It's to the point for Thursday, the 30th of June. We're talking to Sergeant Coach Roberts from the Royal Grenada Police Force. We're talking preparedness from the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective in terms of emergency. We're going to take a short break. We come back, we should chat some more. Opportunities will also be awarded to you callers to calling, and of course ask Roberts some information pertaining to emergencies and so forth that you think you would like to know about. Let's take that break. We come in right back.
Have you heard about the new Softweave bathroom tissue with total hygiene? As hygiene and safety have taken center stage, our bathroom tissue is now manufactured with 3 different technologies to offer the best protection for you and your family. UVC light technology for a safe and effective disinfection process, eliminating 99.9% of microorganisms. Also, production at high temperatures, killing all types of germs and bacteria. And it's pH controlled with delicate fibers to prevent irritation for even sensitive skin. Softweave Total Hygiene Bathroom Tissue. Available in supermarkets and shops island-wide. Visit Softweave Caribbean Facebook or Instagram pages for more information.
Get away from your daily stress with a Grenada vacation at the Cuyaba Beach Resort. Cuyaba is located on the world-famous Grand Anse Beach and boasts 5.5 acres of beautiful gardens. We offer excellent excellent service, good food and drink, well-appointed rooms and friendly staff in a safe environment. Facilities include 2 restaurants, 2 bars, swimming pool, water sports, tennis, gym and body treatment rooms. Call 473-444-4129.
And we are back here on To The Point for today, Thursday. And here with us this morning is Sergeant Roberts, as mentioned before. We're talking preparedness for emergency in terms of hurricanes, etc., from the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective. So we're back, Sergeant Roberts. And we talk a whole lot, in the first segment when we were conversing pertaining to how the Royal Police Force thinks that individuals and the force per se should prepare themselves. Now, Could you highlight some of the lessons learned from the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective in terms of past, events, like especially from Hurricane Ivan, Hurricane Emily? What are some of these things you would like to tell to the listening, viewing audience out there from the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective in terms of lessons learned that we know that it would be better dealt with?
All right, GT. After Ivan, I think the police force in general, it was spellbound. Mm-hmm. We didn't have a psychiatrist working on our behalf, and sometimes after the hurricane, people are traumatized. Police officers as well. Mm-hmm. And a glaring example is there was a gentleman who lived close to me. That man was a jovial guy before Ivan. Mm-hmm. Outdoor person. Ivan came, moved with his roof. And I think they thought about where he's going to get the money to replace the roof. That took a serious toll on him. All of a sudden, he became an introvert. He go back into his shell, and he was hardly going out, hardly speaking to persons and stuff like that. And I was like, even if he didn't die during the hurricane, a significant part of him died after.
Yes, there's that psychological effect.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And from the Royal Grenada Police Force perspective, that also was taken into consideration.
All right.
So there is the opportunity for persons who are affected in that way mentally to get some counseling, and and we just hope that everything will work and work well for members of the Royal Grenada Police Force. I will also advise persons of the general public to seek that kind of help too.
All right.
As I say, you might find 20 persons dying during the hurricane, house falling on them running at and whatever. But after 6 months after, 10 months after, you find 70 persons may die of that as a result of that post-traumatic stress. And to me, it should be included into everything should be tallied up. So say 70 and 20, 90.
Exactly.
But we won't really get it like that.
All right.
Yeah. Another thing was the looting aspect of and we learn from that as well. So just before the hurricane, the Minister of National Security, we will get a bulletin where they will establish a curfew.
Okay.
Yes. And we will police that. We will employ the curfew. The main purpose of the curfew is to get people off the streets.
Okay.
And we want to do that swiftly, ensure that everybody is off the streets. We are concerned about person safety. And that's about the curfew will go in effect about 6 hours before the actual blow. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we will also have what we call a forward deployed team. It's a static sub-duty you would take key junctions and stuff around the city.
All right.
We don't want persons infiltrating, and we will also have mobile patrol within. Yeah,
I understand, but would you say that those sort of measures per se would be mostly implemented if the knowing approaching system would be of a severe nature, or if it's of a regular nature, or mostly of a severe? We know that it's going to be because of the information that coming out from the credible sources, like my example that says, we are expecting a category 1 or category 2 hurricane, which we know is going to impact this island, and the impact and what it could cause. You understand? But that's when those kind of measures will be implemented.
Once it's a hurricane.
Yeah. In general, it doesn't.
Because
the severity of it doesn't matter. Once it's a hurricane is approaching. But say, most time a typical storm may not be that severe. You understand? A typical storm, we had an experience of one a couple of days ago. But then we know once a storm that is approaching gets to the level of a hurricane.
Yeah.
I'm just want to know if that's when those measures will be implemented.
Exactly.
All right.
Yeah. Once it's hurricane and Ivan. Just going back to Ivan. We were told that Ivan was a category 3?
I think it was 2.
Well, a lot of people didn't buy into that.
But I'm assuming because this was a first time nature of feeling one of the strength. But I think it was a category 2.
Right. And a lot of people was like, nah, boy, if it's at 2, you have to be 22. Because that thing was so devastated and stuff. Yeah, so and we would ensure that people get off the streets and make sure that they seek shelter, go to a safe area and stuff like that. And just before the blow, because we don't want police officers getting injured and getting hurt and thing too,
So true. I'm assuming analysis and stuff will be done, just a minutes after or when the calm part per se of the hurricane or whatever storm has occurred, and it's probably safe. Although no time is safe, but maybe after it has passed the island or so, I know you're looking at the assessment part of it now. And I guess that's when we see the officers will start employing the necessary restrictions and stuff.
No, we employing it before, just before and immediately after.
All right.
Just before and immediate. Because GT, as I tell you, Ivan, people were breaking people's place and nothing before the hurricane,
I know that for sure. I have personally witnessed that. Within the storm per se, what's going on, there were individuals getting themselves involved in those activities.
Yes, so
I saw that. So the police force, I mean, it's not saying that you all have to be out in the actual storm, but you have to do what you have to do.
We have to do what we have to do. Yeah, we will be out there just before the blow. We will get back to safety for the blow, and immediately thereafter we deploy men again on the ground to dominate, ensure that we do what we have to do, but notwithstanding that people might be injured and have to seek medical attention. So once people are seeking medical attention, from the roadblock will allow people to get in.
So let's talk about the communication aspect of this now, because during a storm, there are people who will be needing assistance. They could be from different at different levels. How does the communication aspect of this work for the Royal Grenada Police Force in terms of knowing how the information will be disseminated to you from different sources? So do an individual call 911? Lines may be down. How does the communication aspect of that work for the Royal Grenada Police Force?
It's a good question. Lines may be down. So you're asking the question from a police perspective or from just the general population?
I'm assuming the police will have their system where there may be backups that will able to keep them able to communicate. I'm assuming that aspect of it, where the police will have their backup systems that will allow communication on a security level. You understand? But then let's say an individual is experiencing a business per se, is experiencing someone or found out that someone is probably, intruding on their property and they want to get in contact with the police. It's probably during the storm. How does that aspect of communication work?
Ooh, I
know it could be a difficult way to think about it now, but sometimes it have to be put into thought. You understand?
Right. No,
in terms of, I just want to know how the preparedness from the Royal Grenadier Post in terms of communication at that particular stage.
It is very difficult. Knowing that lines might be down, like telephones and stuff like that, the business owner may not have a radio. Mm-hmm. That person will have to know the location of the forward deploy, mm-hmm. and it's a big risk trying to move to get to that forward deploy.
It's true. I mean, you're not encouraging folks to come out and get themselves injured during the storm. You understand? I was just warning about the communication aspect of just in case there's a.
From my take on it, that business owner, for his own safety, mm-hmm. he would have to relax, right. Stay indoors. If it's a businessman, depending on the level of the business, things will be insured.
Exactly, and I guess after what has blown and no, the police can attend him. Then I guess that's when it happens.
Yeah.
So pretty soon, viewers and listeners, we will be able to take your phone calls. The number that you can call is 435-2041. You probably have a question that you may like to ask the Sergeant Roberts here this morning. You can certainly have the opportunity to do so. Those of you via social media, you also, if there's a question or something in your mind that you would like to throw out pertaining to the readiness of the Royal Grenadier Police Force, on all aspects, just in case there is an emergency. And we into the season, or the hurricane season per se. And I'm looking at one of the messages here via social media, or Facebook per se, and this individual is asking, what are the plans for the Royal Grenadier Police Force have for small islands in just in case, like, small islands per se out there, like Isle of Ron and the other small islands out there, in case of a disaster scene, there's no electricity and so forth on that. What are some of the plans the Royal Grenadier Police has for those islands out there? If you are able to answer that one.
Do we have people living on Isle of Ron?
Well, you never know. There may be. Just in case.
I don't know.
Just in case. What are the plans they have? Any thought ever put into that?
No.
You never think any thought ever put into that?
I don't want to believe that. We're more go with Grenada CARICOM PD Martinique
for now.
We know that persons are living on the islands. I'm not too sure whether or not anyone is living on Isle of Ron. Mm-hmm. And if no one is living on Isle of Ron,
I think the question would just ask us a typical example. It could be Petit Martinique per se. It could be one of those islands. What are the plans per se for the Royal Grenadier Post in terms of approaching these small islands? But most of the times emphasis are put on the mainland per se.
Right.
A lot of emphasis are put on the mainland.
But GT is a good question, mm-hmm. because some boat operator might be stranded and end up on Isle of Ron.
That's so true.
And our function basically is to save life and property.
Yep.
So, but once right, and that brings me to, if the person has a boat, they might have VHF radio. So that person might be able to make contact with the RGPF via radio.
All right.
And once we get that information, the Grenada Coast Guard, based on the time of the call.
Yes.
If things are really, really bad with the sea, we wouldn't want to risk our Coast Guard people's lives.
So true.
So once there is enough time to reach that person will be reached and pulled to safety.
All right. I think we have a caller. We have a question they would like to ask you. Let's go over to the phone line and take the call.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, GT, and good morning to Sergeant Roberts, if I have it right. I'm very encouraged at the conversation that is happening there, especially the honesty of the officer, like in relation to that question of that. And as him, I would say it's a very good question. Also, in terms of the psychosocial aspect, I was going to prepare to ask about that, but he had mentioned about the psychiatrist and so on. So could I ask you a question? Do you have a resident psychiatrist working with the police right now?
Sir, we do.
Okay, that's good. Excellent. I'm very encouraged. Also, in terms of there was a psychosocial manual that was developed after Hurricane Ivan. Are you aware of that one?
I can't say that. I can't say that. I can't say so.
Well, I'm not surprised, because even a few years ago when I asked the then head of the Red Cross, he didn't have an idea of it. And 2,500 copies were produced by the ARD. And unfortunately, it was not used. I have a copy. I can find a way to get it to the police so that they could use it. In fact, I've asked it on your program already, GT, that we revise, update the psychosocial manual, so that we need to take disaster seriously. And I'm glad that the police seems to be proactive. And then even some of the lessons you say you learn, I'm glad. But let me ask you a next question. Forgive me. In terms of all that you're saying and doing, what role does the community relations department or section of the police plays in that? I know they respond to situation, but do they have a role, or are they integrated in the process?
Yes. Generally, they will disseminate information.
Okay.
To the public and to the media.
But I think maybe there might be an added role to have some kind of connection with the wider community, apart from their role as a section within the police, that they have something to do with the wider community in which they aim to encourage. And I'm glad also that the new administration is talking about community development and community, because we need to approach this thing from a community point of view, from a collective point of view, because all of us are in the same boat. And finally, because we are expecting more and more frequent severe storms and so on, we need to do everything. And I will challenge the police, including dealing with the law where people violate the environment, cutting down trees, all kind of things. We need to do something about that. Thank you very much for your indulgence.
Yes, caller.
Lots of valid points there from the caller.
Yeah.
What is the Royal Grenada Police Force, of course, perspective or take per se on in terms of evacuation in when there's an emergency, especially in a storm per se or hurricane? What is the procedure the Royal Grenada Police Force would like everyone as a whole to follow?
Yes, and as I said earlier, if for any reason when you're located you don't feel safe, for whatever reason, our advice is to move where you think you are safe.
All right.
If you live by yourself, we advise persons, it might be better to see out a hurricane with friends. If something were to go wrong with you and you're by yourself,
use the authorized shelters also.
If you could get to a neighbor, or you come together, wait it out together.
All right.
Because that support is there.
Is also needed.
That support is there.
I think we have another caller. Let's talk to this caller. Caller, good morning. How are you? Hello, caller. Good morning. Good morning, caller. I guess that caller is not ready for us there. Hey, folks, we're taking your calls. We're talking to Sergeant Roberts from the Royal Grenada Police Force. We're talking emergency in terms of there's a hurricane, the Royal Grenada Police Force, there's perspective in terms of preparedness. We're talking this morning. If you do have a question that you would like to ask, we will certainly entertain it. Let's take another caller. Caller, good morning. How are you?
Yes, good morning to all on the program. Just a suggestion, trying to ask the Sergeant, what do you have in place for communication in case of the hurricane and the emergency shelters? Do you have anything in place for that?
No, sir. That doesn't really fall under the police per se. Yes?
Okay, it fall under who?
Caller, could you repeat the question?
The communication part of it for the hurricane shelters and everything. Who is in charge of that?
Hurricane shelters in every district. There are people charged with that. And GT, I probably should have mentioned that earlier on.
Okay. Question.
And the shelters, it is done in terms of constituencies. right?
Okay.
So, depending on the constituency that you're in, there are some listed shelters for that particular
I
constituency.
think also the caller was really asking in terms
Yes,
of the communication aspect.
What type of communication you have there for emergency?
He was asking what type of communication in terms of these shelters. How does the police, if the police is responsible for organizing the communication aspects in the shelters? Is that what you're trying to say, caller?
Oh yes, what's up? Because in emergencies, when all system is down, especially something like Ivan, all your towers is down, everything is down. What do you use for communication?
We use radios, and we have. I think we have. I'm subject to correction. I wonder if it's going to have a satellite radio. I'm not.
A few weeks ago, I was actually speaking to. I hope I'm getting it. Is it Sergeant Wilson? No, Wilson.
Yeah,
Superintendent Wilson.
Wilson.
Yes, and he was given some highlights pertaining to the communication parts in terms of what they have, the new system and so forth they have up, in which they are able to communicate the police directly to NAGMA and so forth. Caller, is anything else you'd like to ask before we move?
Yes, the satellite systems could work, but if you're thinking about the other systems, we have to use repeaters, and so that will not work. So you have to have some other better system in place here. There's other systems they could use, but you have to equip all the shelters with that. That will work, So this is something they should look at.
All right.
Okay, caller, thank you.
Yeah. I think the police is really not responsible for that, Yeah. But I could understand the caller.
Yeah. Well, I mean, communication is also a part in the disaster, and the Royal Grenada Police Force, from their perspective, also means that police should play a part in that and able to communicate with the shelters and so forth to know what's taking place. Even though NAGMA may fill that gap per se, the Royal Grenada Police Force should also play a part in that. Would you agree with me on that?
Well, yeah, but what I know happens from time to time is that once a shelter is up and running, the police will make regular visits.
Okay.
Because as it is now, there is no communication.
I understand that.
So we make regular visits to check ever so often to ensure that who belongs to that shelter is in that shelter. Because we don't want people moving, because once you find people moving over and the cross-fertilization of things, you have problems.
All right.
Yes?
We do have another caller. Caller, good morning. How are you?
Yes, good morning. On the program, the issue of stress and hardship and so forth was mentioned in the times of hurricane or disasters. Now, I would like to advise that people who have a personal and intimate relationship with the Lord have a better ability to cope with whatever volume of stress or stress that comes. There is a great difference in knowing God, having a relationship with Him. You are able to cope much, much better than somebody who just don't know God. They might know there is a God, they admit there is a God, but they have no relationship with Him. They do not have an experience, and so they are not changed on the inside. So they are not able to cope with the stress or with problem. So they break out in violence, they break out in every other thing because they cannot cope. But I'm advising people to get a personal and intimate relationship with the Lord, and you will prove. Then you will prove the difference between knowing God and not knowing God, and how to cope with life than those.
Okay, caller, excuse me, but for some reason where you are located, it's very difficult for us to, of course, understand what you're saying or hear per se what you're saying. So you may have to go to another location and call us back, as it seems that she's in a particular room where you're not hearing what she's saying properly. Now, in case of emergency, who do you call? Who do you call? When there's an emergency with the Royal Grenada Police Force, do you call the Royal Grenada Police Force, or do we contact NAGMA? Who do you call?
Well, NAGMA
will be the first thing
nucleus.
You call. Okay.
NAGMA will be the nucleus.
Mm-hmm.
There is some disaster. NAGMA, the information goes to NAGMA, NAGMA throw it out. We respond.
Okay. Let's go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I have a grave problem with some people or some agencies that are giving out information. I could give you give you many instances, but I'll take one. Now, let's say, for example, the Met Office. Everything's supposed to be standardized. And to sometimes or most times, they give people information in fathoms and feet. As far as I know, and as far as I perhaps have learned, that this information should be standardized. In other words, if you're talking about fathoms, you should be able to possibly talk about meters. You don't mix up metric system and imperial system. Maybe you and the police might be able to convert the system very quickly. But we and people in certain ages are accustomed to feet and inches. For when you're talking about storms, maybe you might better tell them how many miles per hour the storm is traveling at, or the wind. And there are some people you would have to explain to them what's a storm and a hurricane. And I've listened to an announcement this week telling us about storm coming. And a lot of people get excited and asking, if school open, if school don't open, if work, if you don't work. In fact, some people even give wrong information about River Road. River Road is flooded, and buses were still running, and talking about a lot of soil in the road. So we have to be very careful as to when we're giving information on all sides. The authorities plus the personal people, the locals. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much, caller.
Thank you, caller.
Sergeant Robert, we did mention that in an earlier bit of our conversation pertaining getting the information from the correct source. I understand the caller's perspective when he says in terms of how the quality of information that we disseminated sometimes, in terms of the individual understanding, know, the context of the information, that could be a bit of an issue sometimes. I understand from that point.
Yeah.
Let's take another call. We're moving up 10 minutes before we wrap up this morning. We have another caller. Caller, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I was just listening to the program and the officer speaking, and the question was asked about Aileron. There are people living on Aileron. Not many, but as far as I know, there are people living there. Very few fishermen, and they even have their children that they bring to school by pirogue across in the mornings. So there are a few people living in Aileron as far as I know. Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller, for giving that bit of an update there. It's to the point for today, Thursday. We're going to take another short break. We'll come back and make our final comments and take a couple of calls before we wrap up. Just about 10 more minutes before we wrap this morning here on To The Point. Let's take a little break and we're coming right back. Don't touch it out.
I want you.
It's a whole box of fun.
Grill Master invites you to its new dining experience. Middle Eastern grill food, appetizers, salads, and Grenada's finest local cuisines. Join us for local breakfast, lunch, or dinner. At Grill Master, dine and feel the aroma of Middle Eastern spices blended with fresh local herbs and spices. Taste and feel the Caribbean mixed with Damascus and Beirut cooking styles. All Middle Middle Eastern menu items available for free delivery. That's right, free for Middle Eastern menu orders over $50. Delivery available throughout St. George's every day, including Sunday and public holidays between 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Book your table or place your free delivery order at 439-3737, 439-7733. WhatsApp number 423-3737. Caribbean Middle Eastern cuisine, so tasty. Grill master, second to none.
Please be advised that our office has been relocated to Steele's Commercial Complex, Grand Anse, St. George. We at CGI, Consumers Guarantee Insurance Company Limited, look forward to serving you at our new location. Call us on telephone number 440-0217 or visit our website www.insurecgi.com.
So we're back with you on To The Point for today. It's Thursday, the 30th day of June. We have Sergeant Robert with us this morning from the Royal Grenadier Police Force. And we're talking preparedness in terms from the Royal Grenadier Police Force perspective in terms of just in case there's an emergency in reference to a hurricane or other natural disasters. We do have a caller online. Let's go over and take this caller. Probably have a question you would like to ask Sergeant Robert's caller. Good morning.
Good morning, GT and your guest, Mr. Robert, Sergeant Robert. I know police usually puts up flags and lanterns. What is the purpose of that, Sergeant Robert?
Right, the purpose is to alert the nation that there is an impending hurricane or whatever it is. But in the recent past, though, we realized that wasn't really making sense. Because if the place is misty and cloudy and stuff like that, you don't see that. It's difficult for you to see that. So, but that is the purpose of it. To warn the nation that there.
Are you saying that was a means of communication?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. So once you see that, in the day it will be flags, in the night it will be something like a lantern, red strobe and stuff like that.
Okay, so, but I think it's still possible because if communication falls, that's the technology that we use now, I think it's wise to use that system until you could have something better.
Yeah, yes. I'm in agreement with you.
And educate the public as to what they symbolize, because it's a means of communication. You know, before we had telephones, we used to go on hill and shout to people on the other side and so forth to inform them. You remember the old thing we used to pass around saying that falling out and so forth?
Yeah, I remember a bell when somebody died in the community. If it's a female woman, you get 2 lash at the bells. Bang, bang. If it's a man, 1.
Yeah, and so we like to take Grenada as a Christian nation and that kind of stuff. So we must not remove all the old landmarks. All right.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. The caller,
I think
the caller brought back some memories of different ways of communicating, just in case our modern way of modern communication at times can fail us, and there are times we may have to go back to those old ways. Let's take another caller this morning and see if there's a way with it this morning. Caller, good morning to you.
Yes, apparently, yes, anyone hearing me clearly when I called. First of all, I was saying that you all were talking about stress and distress in situations of hurricane or any disaster, any problems in life. And I was saying, for the sake of the populace, it is someone who has an intimate relationship with God is able to cope much better than someone who doesn't have a relationship with God. So my advice to people is to test it, prove it. Give your life to Christ. When something happens, see the difference before you give your life to Christ, or how you handle the problem, and after, know that you have Christ. It is much easier. It is easier because you have God on your side, and you're able now to pray, you're able to talk to God, your confidence, your strength, your inner person is much able to cope than someone someone who don't have any relationship with God whatsoever. Thank you.
All right, Paula, thank you very, very much. Sergeant Roberts, we're moving up to 2 minutes before the top 10. There's 2 more minutes left on the program this morning. Any final bit of information you would like to throw out to our viewing and listening audience before we wrap this morning?
Yeah, GT, just as I started the program, I just want to appeal to person's reasoning. Whenever there is this hurricane warning, whenever there is an impending hurricane, please do everything in your powers to ensure that you are safe. Do not wait on the 11th hour. Do not wait when it is, dangerous to do so. It will be difficult for you to get help. Safety, safety, safety. Thank you.
All right. Hey, well, Sergeant Ramos, we want to thank you this morning for popping in and sharing information. And I certainly hope that the viewing and listening audience this morning did gain a lot pertaining to what you threw out. And we thank you for popping by. That's what we wrap up to that's what we wrap up to the point for today. Join us again for another edition that will be tomorrow. And this way, goodbye. Say goodbye once again to our viewing audience via GBN TV. Those of you also viewing via our Facebook platform, thank you so much for those of you who contributed there. And those of you who listen via K105, have yourself a great day. That's what we wrap up to the point for today.